When my son Ethan told me I wasn't welcome at his house for Christmas, I smiled, got in my SUV, and made a phone call. By the new year, I had canceled their mortgage. My name is Laura Harper, and that was just the beginning of my plan. Justice was served, and arrogance was punished. You won't believe what I did next. You're listening to this story on Renvenge Zinnia, where buried truths are told by those who live them. Please subscribe and share where you're watching in the comments. I settled into Ethan's sleek leather couch, saying, "I could make my famous roast duck with herb stuffing your dad used to rave about. Remember how he'd say it beat his mom's recipe?" The words lingered in the warm air, mingling with the scent of Natalie's pricey citrus candles. Ethan shifted beside me, his wedding ring glinting under the light from their 10-foot Christmas tree. His shoulders tensed, like he was bracing for a hit. "Mom, I'm sorry, but you won't be welcome here for Christmas." The words struck like a fist. I blinked, sure I'd misheard. "What do you mean? Why wouldn't I be welcome?" Ethan avoided my eyes, staring at the glass coffee table I'd helped pick out last fall when Natalie decided their old furniture wasn't stylish enough. "Natalie's parents are coming, and they'd prefer if you weren't here." My hands went cold. "They'd prefer. It's just easier this way, Mom. You know how Natalie's family is about their traditions." His voice shrank with each word like he was collapsing inward. I glanced around the living room, at the velvet curtains I'd paid for when Natalie complained about glare, the polished oak floors funded by my business loan, the custom light fixtures that had drained my savings. Every corner of this house bore my sacrifices, my love for my son. "Their traditions," I repeated slowly. "And what are those, Ethan?" He flinched. "Mom, please don't make this harder than it needs to be." Through the kitchen doorway, I saw Natalie's new high-end espresso machine, the one she had to have for her brief barista obsession. $1,500 of my money, probably used 3 times since September. So where am I supposed to spend Christmas? My voice was quieter than I intended. Ethan's face crumpled. "Maybe you could visit Aunt Lily, or we could do something the weekend after." The weekend after. Like Christmas was just a meeting to reschedule. I stood, my knees stiff from years of carrying burdens alone. "I see." "Mom, wait." But I was already heading for the door, past the family photos where my presents faded with each frame, past the closet stuffed with Natalie's designer coats. My hand found the cold doorknob. "Ethan," I said without turning, "tell Natalie's parents happy holidays." The December chill stung my face as I walked to my SUV. Behind me, Ethan called my name once, then the door clicked shut. Final. Absolute. I sat in the driver's seat, engine off, watching Christmas lights twinkle in the windows of homes I'd never belong in. My phone buzzed. Probably Ethan trying to smooth things over with empty promises. I didn't answer. Instead, I started the car and drove into the darkness, leaving behind the warm glow of the house I'd helped buy, but would never call home. The SUV hummed through the familiar streets of Boise, Idaho, each corner holding memories of the woman I used to be, one who believed family was everything, who'd give her last dollar to see her son smile. That woman was naive. At a stoplight on State Street, I watched a young mother load Christmas gifts into her minivan, her kids pressing their faces against the windows, fogging the glass with excitement. That used to be Ethan and me. Before Natalie, before I became nothing more than a walking checkbook with inconvenient feelings. The numbers started spinning in my head like a broken slot machine. $2,500 a month for 6 years. I'd stopped calculating last winter when the total hit me. $180,000. More than my late husband Thomas and I had saved for our retirement dreams. Gone. Just gone. I gripped the wheel tighter as the light turned green, the SUV growling in sync with my mood. On Vista Avenue, I'd refinanced my house, Thomas's and mine, to cover their down payment. The loan officer had looked at me with pity I hadn't noticed then. "Ms. Harper, are you sure? This is a big risk for someone else's investment." Someone else's investment. Not my son's future, not my family's security, just someone else's investment. On Overland Road, I'd taken out a business loan when Ethan lost his job 3 years ago. "Just temporary, Mom," he'd said. Natalie stood behind him, clutching a $700 handbag, nodding sympathetically while mentally tallying my desperation. It was worth nothing to them, as it turned out. I pulled into my driveway, the one with the cracked pavers I couldn't afford to fix because every spare dollar went to their perfect suburban lifestyle. The porch light flickered, another repair I'd delayed. Inside, the house felt empty without Thomas's laughter, without the warmth of family gatherings that would never happen again. My phone rang as I fumbled with my keys, the sound echoing off the bare walls. Natalie's name flashed on the screen, probably ready to explain why I wasn't good enough for her parents' refined tastes. Perfect timing. I'd been waiting 6 years for this conversation. I answered on the 4th ring, letting her stew just long enough. "Laura," Natalie's voice dripped with fake sweetness, the tone she used when asking me to cover their electric bill or property taxes. "I heard about the little mix-up with Ethan." "Mix-up?" I leaned against my kitchen counter, still in my coat. "I don't think there's any mix-up, Natalie. You made your stance crystal clear." "Look, I know it seems harsh, but you have to understand my parents' perspective. They're very particular about holiday vibes." I heard shopping bags rustling, probably spending money that should have gone to their mortgage, my responsibility, apparently. "Particular vibes," I echoed. "And what vibes are those?" A pause. "They're not used to your kind of cooking, all that hearty Southern food and loud music. And frankly, Laura, they're cultured people. They expect talks about art, politics, literature, you know." The words stung worse than a slap. 6 years of biting my tongue, swallowing insults for Ethan's sake, pretending not to notice Natalie treating me like hired help. "My kind of cooking," I said evenly. "You mean the food you ate every Sunday for 2 years when money was tight? The cornbread you said reminded you of your grandma?" That was different. We were grateful then, but now with my parents, the sweetness vanished. "Don't be dramatic, Laura. This isn't about your background. It's about sophistication. My dad has a PhD from Boise State. My mom's fluent in 3 languages. They vacation in Sun Valley. What would you bring to the table? Stories about running a business?" Heat surged in my chest, but I kept my voice steady. "I built a company from scratch after Thomas passed. I've employed over 60 people. I've paid more in taxes than your dad earned in his best year." "Money isn't everything, Laura. Class matters. Education matters. And frankly, Thomas knew his place better than you do." The line went silent. She'd crossed a line I didn't know existed until she stomped over it. "What did you say about my husband?" My voice was low, dangerous. "I'm just saying he blended in better. He didn't make a scene. He knew some spaces weren't for him." My grip tightened on the phone, knuckles whitening. "Thomas had more grace in his little finger than your entire lineage will ever have." "Oh, please. He was a mechanic who got lucky. At least he had the sense to stay quiet." "Natalie," my voice dropped to a tone I barely recognized. "Listen carefully. This conversation is over. We're done pretending to be family." I ended the call, setting the phone down with steady hands. The kitchen felt lighter, like a weight had lifted from the air. I walked to my desk and pulled out the folder I'd avoided for months. Bank statements, loan papers, 6 years of automatic transfers that had drained me while they lived like royalty. Time to stop the bleeding. The documents spread across my kitchen table like evidence at a trial. 6 years of bank statements, each showing the same transfer. $2,500 on the 10th of every month, vanishing into their account. I grabbed my calculator. First year, $30,000. Second year, another $30,000. By the 3rd year, I'd stopped buying new clothes. 4th year, I switched to discount groceries. This year, the 6th, I'd been eating canned soup for dinner to make ends meet. $180,000 total. Not counting the down payment, The utility bills I'd covered when Natalie's shopping sprees got out of hand, or the new deck they needed for entertaining. I sat back, staring at the numbers until they blurred. Thomas's life insurance, my retirement savings, the college fund we'd started for grandkids I'd probably never meet, all gone, poured into a house where I wasn't welcome for Christmas dinner. I picked up my phone and dialed my bank. The automated system offered English or Spanish, so considerate for people like me. Customer service, this is Rachel. How can I help you today? I need to cancel an automatic transfer, I said, my voice stronger than it had been in years. I gave her the account details, hearing her type in the background. I see the transfer, Ms. Harper. $2,500 monthly to Idaho Central Credit Union. Account ending in 9274. How long have you been making this? 6 years. The words tasted bitter. You want to cancel it, effective immediately? I looked around my kitchen, at the outdated fridge I couldn't replace, the peeling wallpaper, the drafty windows I'd neglected because my money went to their dream home. Immediately, I confirmed. Done. The transfer is canceled. Anything else I can help with? No, I said, the word feeling better than I expected. That's all. I hung up and sat in the quiet of my house. Outside, Boise's December dusk settled in, Christmas lights glowing in homes where families gathered without judgment. For the first time in 6 years, next month's budget would balance. For the first time since Thomas died, I could afford to fix my porch light, buy real groceries, maybe even take a trip. I gathered the bank statements and loan papers, walked to my fireplace and struck a match. 6 years of sacrifice burned to ash. The fire warmed my face, more comforting than anything in years. My phone buzzed, probably Ethan or Natalie, needing money for something essential like new curtains. I didn't check. Instead, I poured a glass of the good bourbon I'd saved for a special occasion that never came. Tonight felt special enough. I raised my glass to the empty room, to Thomas's photo on the mantel, to the woman I used to be, and the one I was becoming. Merry Christmas to me, I said, and meant it. The next morning was crisp and clear, December sunlight streaming through my kitchen windows as I sipped my second cup of coffee. For the first time in years, I wasn't calculating how much money would vanish in 3 days. Freedom tasted better than the artisanal blend I'd finally splurged on. My phone rang at 10:15 a.m. Natalie's name flashed like a warning. Laura, her voice carried that familiar, impatient edge. I need you to pick up my parents from Boise Airport. Their flight from Portland lands at 1:30. I set my mug down, watching the steam curl upward. Natalie, did you forget our conversation yesterday? Look, whatever that was, we need to focus on practical stuff now. My parents need a ride, and you're the only one free during the day. The audacity was stunning. Less than 24 hours after saying I wasn't good enough for their Christmas dinner, she expected me to be their chauffeur. And you're asking me because that's what family does, Laura. They help out. Her tone sharpened. Besides, let's be real. You're not my equal. You're too soft to be. So just get in your SUV and pick them up. The final insult wrapped in a command. What airline? I asked quietly. Delta Flight 312. They'll be at baggage claim Carousel 2. And Laura, they expect someone who can handle their luggage properly. Don't embarrass us. I heard her nails tapping, probably on the quartz countertop I'd paid for when she decided laminate was tacky. Of course, I said. I'll handle everything. Good. And wear something nice. Maybe that gray blazer from Ethan's engagement party. They notice details like that. She hung up without a thank you. I stared at my phone's blank screen. 1:30, Flight 312, Carousel 2. I glanced at my wall clock. 10:20 a.m. Plenty of time. I poured another coffee, added a splash of cream, and opened yesterday's newspaper to the crossword I hadn't finished. 6 across. Deferred reward. 10 letters. The answer would come. At 1:45 p.m., I was settled in my favorite armchair with a fresh cup of chamomile tea and the Idaho Statesman Sunday edition. The crossword was done. Deferred reward was patience. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. Natalie's name. I let it ring. December sunlight warmed the room where I'd spent so many lonely evenings counting the cost of my generosity. Today, the silence felt earned. By 2:15, my phone buzzed again. A text preview from Natalie. "Mom, where are you? My parents are..." I flipped the phone face down and returned to the arts section. The local theater had a new play opening. Some things were worth seeing. By 3 o'clock, my phone had buzzed 5 times. I'd finished the paper, brewed another pot of tea, and started organizing my desk drawer. Amazing what you could do when you weren't rushing around for people who saw you as their personal errand runner. The 6th call came at 3:20 from an unknown number, probably Natalie's parents borrowing a phone at the airport. I let it ring. Outside, a neighbor was stringing Christmas lights, her kids darting around the yard with December energy. Normal families doing normal things. No one stranded waiting for someone who'd never show. By 4 o'clock, my phone was a buzzing hive. Natalie, the unknown number. Natalie again. I unplugged my landline and turned off my cell. Perfect silence. I made a grilled cheese sandwich and heated a bowl of tomato bisque. Comfort food I hadn't indulged in for months because every grocery dollar went to their lifestyle. The cheese melted golden. The soup steamed in my favorite mug. Somewhere across town, 3 people were probably arguing in an airport parking lot about cab fares, wondering how their personal assistant dared to ditch them. The thought made my bisque taste even better. By 4:30, I'd eaten, loaded the dishwasher, and was picking a movie. Years had passed since I'd had an evening to myself without emergency calls for cash or last-minute favors. I was reaching for the remote when someone pounded on my front door. Not knocking, pounding, the kind that rattled the frame with raw fury. I set my tea down and walked toward the sound, knowing exactly who I'd find. Through the peephole, I saw 3 figures on my porch, like vultures circling. I opened the door to William Carter's flushed face inches from mine. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he shouted, shoving past me into my living room uninvited. "We waited at that damn airport for over 3 hours. Eleanor followed, her usually pristine hair a mess, her lips a thin line of rage. "This is utterly unacceptable for someone your age, Laura. Downright uncivilized." Natalie trailed behind, her designer jacket crumpled, makeup smudged. "You humiliated us. Do you have any idea what you've done? My parents had to take a $50 cab because you decided to throw a tantrum." "Get out of my house," I said, my voice cutting through their outrage like a knife. They froze mid-rant, stunned by the steel in my tone. "Excuse me?" William's face turned purple. "You don't get to make demands here, lady, not after what you pulled today." "This is my house," I said quietly, holding my ground by the door, "and I want you out now." Eleanor stepped forward, her voice dripping with decades-honed condescension. "Laura, you clearly don't grasp the gravity of your mistake. My husband has connections across this city, business, social. You can't treat people like us this way and expect no fallout." "This was a lesson for you," I cut in, meeting her gaze. "A lesson about your arrogance and your mistreatment of people you think are beneath you." Natalie's jaw dropped. "A lesson? Who do you think you are to teach anyone anything? You're nobody." "I'm someone who's done being your personal bank and taxi service," I said, opening the door wider. "The lesson's over. Leave." William jabbed a finger toward me, stopping short of contact. "You have no idea who you're messing with, old lady. I've been in Boise longer than you've been running that little business of yours. I know people, important people, who can make your life miserable." "Is that a threat, Mr. Carter?" "It's a promise," he hissed. "You think abandoning seniors at an airport is something you can just do? You're about to learn how wrong you are." Eleanor nodded, her smile sharp. "Indeed, actions have consequences, Laura, and yours will be very public." Natalie grabbed her father's arm. "Dad, let's go. This pathetic woman isn't worth our time." They filed out like a defeated parade, but William turned back at the threshold. "You'll regret this," he said. "I guarantee it." I closed the door and turned the deadbolt with a satisfying click. Through the window, I watched them pile into their rental car, still bickering as they drove into the December night. The house felt cleaner without them, as if their presence had left a stain that was finally lifting. But their parting words echoed. Public consequences, important people, connections. I picked up my tea, still warm. For the first time in this mess, I felt a flicker of concern, but it was drowned out by something stronger. Anticipation. 3 days later, I was sipping my morning coffee and scanning the Idaho Statesman when my face stared back from page 4. The headline read, "Local businesswoman abandons elderly couple at airport during holiday chaos." My hands froze around the mug. There I was in black and white, a photo from my company's website, probably 4 years old. Below, a story that chilled my blood and ignited my anger. William and Eleanor Carter, visiting their daughter for Christmas, were left stranded at Boise Airport for over 4 hours on Sunday, when family member Laura Harper failed to show for a pre-arranged pickup. The couple, both in their early 60s, waited in chilly conditions as a winter advisory loomed. Winter advisory. It was 50 degrees Fahrenheit and clear. "We couldn't believe someone would abandon us like that," said William Carter, a retired consultant. "We called repeatedly, but Ms. Harper never answered. We had to take an expensive cab in risky weather." At their age, this treatment is not just rude, it's reckless. The article went on with quotes about my unpredictable behavior and concerns about my stability. William had painted himself and Eleanor as helpless victims of a cruel woman who snapped for no reason. No mention of the Christmas dinner ban, no context about Natalie's demands or their years of financial exploitation. Just me, the villain who ditched poor travelers in a non-existent storm. I read the article twice, then a third time. The byline was Sarah Mitchell, lifestyle editor. I didn't know her, but I recognized the tactic. William had called in favors, using his consulting connections to plant this story where it would hurt my reputation most. Clever. Very clever. For the first time, I felt a grudging respect for my opponents. They weren't just entitled snobs throwing fits. They were calculated. They knew that in a tight-knit city like Boise, reputation was everything. One well-placed article could undo decades of work. They'd declared war. I folded the paper and set it aside, my mind shifting into the strategic mode that had built my business. This wasn't about airport pickups or Christmas dinner anymore. This was about winning. I opened my laptop and started searching names. William Carter, Eleanor Carter, Natalie Harper. Their social media, connections, habits, weaknesses, everything they'd foolishly made public. The wall calendar showed December 18th, 7 days until Christmas, 7 days to plan something they'd never forget. For the next 3 days, I lived in a different world. Not as Laura Harper, the pushover mom, but as Laura Harper, the businesswoman who'd built an empire from nothing and wouldn't let parasites destroy it. My laptop became mission control. William Carter, retired consultant, member of the Boise Chamber of Commerce, board member of a local charity, a man with influence and a lot to lose. Eleanor's Instagram was a curated gallery of elegance. Galas, art openings, photos from their Sun Valley cabin tagged, "Our blessed life." All funded by others' money, including mine. Natalie's Facebook told the real story. Posts about our stunning home with photos of the kitchen I'd paid for, check-ins at pricey restaurants when I'd covered their bills, a status from last week. Can't wait for Christmas dinner with family, ready to shine as hosts. Their house, their success, their skills. The narcissism was staggering. Ethan's LinkedIn gave me the final piece, a new connection with Sarah Mitchell, lifestyle editor at the Idaho Statesman. The same Sarah who'd written the hit piece on me. I leaned back, staring at the evidence. They'd made 3 mistakes: underestimating me, going public with their attack, and documenting their hypocrisy online. I clicked through to Sarah Mitchell's profile. 38 journalism degree from University of Idaho, 12 years at local papers, no prior ties to consulting. William had likely reached out through a mutual contact. A quick search of local business directories confirmed it. 2 shared connections between William and Sarah's editor. The article was no accident. It was planted. I opened a new document and started typing. Not a rebuttal, but something better. A timeline. 6 years of financial support, bank statements, receipts, canceled checks, the down payment, $40,000 from my business loan. The kitchen remodel for Natalie's essential quartz counters, $15,000 from my savings, 72 mortgage payments of $2,500 each, totaling $180,000. Nearly $240,000, more than I'd spent on myself in a decade. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, probably Natalie trying a new angle. I ignored it and kept working. By evening, I had a thick folder, statements, receipts, social media screenshots of their purchases I'd funded, a printed copy of the article with my handwritten notes marking every lie. The calendar showed December 24th circled in red, not for Christmas, but for justice. Natalie's Facebook event listed a Christmas dinner for 10 guests, family, friends, neighbors, the kind who read the Statesman and formed opinions, people who deserve the truth. I closed my laptop and grabbed my camera, the one I'd bought to document project sites for my business. Time to use it for something else. Tomorrow was Christmas Eve. Tomorrow, William Carter and his family would learn what happens when you pick a fight with someone who knows how to win. Christmas Eve dawned cold and gray, a Boise winter day that made you grateful for warm homes and family gatherings. Too bad I wasn't welcome at either. But I had other plans. I laid out my evidence like a lawyer prepping for court. Bank statements by year, each payment highlighted, receipts in chronological order showing my support for their lifestyle, printed social media photos, Natalie's new earrings, their mountain vacation, the Christmas decor adorning their home, all funded by me. 10 copies, 1 for each guest. The article sat on top, my red pen notes marking lies, false next to William's weather claims, misleading by the erratic behavior jab. I dressed in my best suit, the charcoal one I'd worn to Thomas's funeral, pressed and ready for another kind of goodbye. Tonight, I'd bury the woman who'd been a doormat. At 6:15 p.m., I loaded my briefcase with the evidence packets and drove to Eagle Road. Their house glowed with light, cars lining the street. Through the windows, I saw Natalie playing hostess in the home my money helped buy. I parked across the street and checked my watch. 6:30. Perfect. Late enough for everyone to be seated, early enough for no easy exits. The front door was unlocked. Natalie loved boasting about their safe neighborhood. I slipped in quietly, the warm air carrying laughter and chatter from the dining room. "But darling, that's not how our family does it," Eleanor was saying, followed by laughs. Our family after they'd shut me out. I walked into the dining room, briefcase in hand. 10 faces turned, ranging from shock to horror. Natalie froze, wine glass halfway to her lips. Ethan paled. William and Eleanor looked like they'd seen a ghost. "Good evening, everyone," I said calmly, setting my briefcase on their sleek sideboard. "Hope you don't mind me joining your Christmas celebration." Natalie spoke first. "Laura, this is completely out of line. You need to leave now." "Actually," I said, pulling out the first packet, "I think your guests deserve to know who really paid for this dinner, this house, and the lifestyle you've been flaunting." A woman, likely one of Eleanor's gala friends, leaned forward. "What's she talking about, Natalie?" "She's having a breakdown," Natalie snapped. "Ethan, call someone." But I was already circling the table, placing packets in front of each guest. "Here are the bank records," I said conversationally. 6 years of support, $180,000 in mortgage payments alone, plus the down payment, remodels, furniture, appliances, everything you see here. The room went silent except for the rustle of papers as guests scanned the evidence. Their faces shifted as the numbers sank in. "This is outrageous," a man said, staring at a statement. "Natalie, why didn't you mention this?" another guest asked. It's more complicated than it looks, Natalie said, her composure cracking. Laura offered to help. We never asked. Actually, I said, holding up the article, let's talk about what you did ask for and what you told the press about me. The room's temperature seemed to drop. I distributed copies of the article, watching guests recognize my photo from the smear piece. Now, I said, let's discuss the real manipulators in this family. William's face went ashen. Eleanor sat rigid, her wine glass forgotten. Mr. Carter used his connections to plant this story, I said, tapping the paper. Notice how I'm painted as unstable, abandoning elderly people in freezing weather. A woman in a cashmere sweater looked up. William, what's this about? It was 50 degrees and clear, I said before he could respond. And they weren't stranded tourists. They were Natalie's parents. Here for the Christmas dinner I was banned from because I wasn't good enough for them. Eleanor found her voice. We never said what? I pulled out my phone, showing screenshots of Natalie's posts. That I was too low class for your parents? That my Southern cooking and business talk would embarrass you? The gala friend shifted uncomfortably. Eleanor, you didn't. She's twisting everything, William blustered. This woman has mental health issues, aging, financial strain. Financial strain. I nearly laughed. I've been supporting your daughter and son-in-law to the tune of $2,500 a month for 6 years. The only financial strain is what you're about to face. I turned to the table. These people took nearly $240,000 from me while insulting me behind my back. They turned my son against me, banned me from family events, and when I stood up for myself, they tried to ruin my reputation. Ethan spoke, barely a whisper. Mom, I didn't know about the article. I swear your wife knew, I said softly, and her parents orchestrated it. They made me the villain for refusing to be their ATM and driver. The room's dynamic shifted. Guests' faces showed disgust, realization dawning that their host's generosity was a lie. This is unacceptable, a man in a tailored jacket said, glaring at the statements. William, how could you let your daughter exploit this woman's generosity, then attack her publicly? William's facade crumbled. You don't know the whole story. I know enough, the man snapped. You treated her like a servant, then smeared her when she stopped enabling you. Eleanor's voice was strained. She abandoned us at the airport. After you said I wasn't welcome at Christmas because my presence didn't fit your parents' standards, I said calmly. After 6 years of paying your bills while you looked down on me for my roots and work. Silence fell. 10 guests stared at William and Eleanor with expressions from disdain to embarrassment. Natalie made a last attempt to regain control. Everyone, please. This is a family matter that's gotten out of hand. No, I said firmly. It stopped being a family matter when you made it public, when you used the press to attack my character. I looked around at unfamiliar faces who now knew me. I wanted you to know the truth before you read about Laura Harper again, because you will, and next time, it'll be the real story. I closed my briefcase and straightened my jacket. Enjoy your dinner. It's the last one I'll pay for. I walked out, the sound of raised voices, accusations, questions, a social facade collapsing, following me to the door. Outside, the Boise night was cold, but the stars shone bright. I drove home, feeling lighter than I had in years, the weight of their lies no longer mine to carry. The day after Christmas, my phone was already buzzing with messages. Natalie's number lit up first, her texts a mix of anger and desperation. How could you do this to us? Followed by, we need to talk, Laura. I ignored them. William and Eleanor's calls came next, their voicemails dripping with indignation, demanding apologies for ruining their holiday. I deleted them without a second thought. Ethan's texts were quieter, hesitant. Mom, can we meet? I didn't know it would go this far. I let those sit unanswered, not out of spite, but because I needed time to decide what came next. By December 27th, the whispers had started in Boise's social circles. A friend from my book club texted, "Heard about the drama at Ethan's dinner. People are talking about those bank statements." The Christmas dinner guests, it seemed, hadn't stayed quiet. Word spread about Natalie's family exploiting me, about William's smear campaign in The Statesman. Their carefully crafted image, built on charity boards and Sun Valley vacations, was unraveling. A week later, on New Year's Eve, I sat in my living room, sipping bourbon and watching the city's fireworks from my window. The first mortgage payment I hadn't covered was due January 10th. I knew Ethan and Natalie wouldn't have the $2,500 ready, not with their lifestyle of designer clothes and upscale dinners. The bank wouldn't wait long before sending warnings. I felt no guilt, only clarity. I'd given them 6 years. They'd have to figure out the rest. By mid-January, the consequences were piling up. A letter arrived from the bank. Not to me, but forwarded by Ethan in a desperate email. The first missed payment had triggered a late fee, and the second was looming. $5,000 in arrears already, with threats of foreclosure if they didn't catch up. Ethan's email was short. "Mom, we're in trouble. Can we talk?" I didn't reply, but I saved the message, a reminder of the line I'd drawn. The social fallout hit William and Eleanor harder. A colleague from my business network mentioned that William had stepped down from his charity board, citing personal reasons. Eleanor's Instagram went silent. No more gala photos or blessed life posts. Natalie's Facebook, once a showcase of their perfect life, stopped updating. The Boise rumor mill churned. Their friends, once so quick to praise their elegance, now whispered about hypocrisy and entitlement. On January 20th, Ethan showed up at my door, unannounced. He looked drained, his tailored jacket wrinkled, dark circles under his eyes. He wasn't the confident man who'd excluded me from Christmas. "Mom," he said, voice low, "we need to talk." I let him in, noting how he glanced around my house. The new furniture from my first mortgage-free paycheck, the fresh paint on walls I'd neglected for years, the repaired windows I could finally afford. "Nice place," he said quietly. "It's what happens when you spend money on yourself instead of people who don't value it," I replied, settling into my recliner. "Coffee?" He shook his head, sitting on the couch's edge like he feared overstaying his welcome. "Mom, I'm so sorry for everything. Christmas, the article, how we treated you. Go on." I didn't know William planted that story, I swear. When I found out, he ran his hands through his hair. "God, Mom, the things they said about you, about Dad's memory." My jaw tightened at Thomas's mention, but I kept my voice steady. "What did they say about your father?" "That he knew his place better than you. That he respected boundaries." He couldn't meet my eyes. "I should have defended you. I should have stood up to them years ago." "Yes," I said simply, "you should have." We sat in silence, the weight of 6 years of mistakes filling the space. Outside, a neighbor's lawnmower hummed, the sound of a normal January day in a normal neighborhood where sons didn't ban their mothers from Christmas. "The house is in trouble," Ethan said finally. "We missed the January payment and the bank's already sending notices." "I know. We can't make it without—" He stopped, realizing how it sounded. "Without my help," I finished. "Without the money I sent while you let Natalie's family treat me like dirt. I know how it looks, Ethan." I leaned forward, holding his gaze. "Do you know how much I sent you over 6 years?" He nodded miserably. Natalie calculated it after Christmas. The mortgage, the down payment, everything. Almost $240,000. $235,000, I corrected. "I know exactly because I finally did what I should have done years ago. I added it up." His face crumpled. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I don't know how to fix this." "You can't fix it, son. That money's gone. But more importantly, those years are gone. Years I could have spent building a relationship with you instead of funding Natalie's fantasy life." "I know now," he said, eyes glistening. "Maybe we could start over. Maybe there's a way. Are you asking me to resume the mortgage payments?" The hope in his eyes faded. We're going to lose everything, Mom. The house, Natalie's respect, her parents' approval. I don't know what to do. You'll figure it out, I said, not unkindly. The way I figured out how to live without a son who respected me. The way I learned to spend Christmas alone while you celebrated with people who thought I was beneath them. He cried then, quietly, like someone out of options. I lost you, didn't I? I chose them over you, and now I've lost you forever. I watched him, this son I'd raised, loved, sacrificed for, who'd let his wife's family convince him I wasn't good enough. Ethan, I said, you didn't lose me. You gave me away. There's a difference. He wiped his eyes. Is there any chance you could forgive me? I forgave you weeks ago, I said, meaning it. But forgiveness doesn't mean going back. It doesn't mean pretending this didn't happen or that I'll keep paying for a lifestyle that came with conditions. Then what does it mean? I stood and walked to my mantel, where Thomas's photo sat beside a new one, me with Lily and her family at New Year's, my first holiday with people who wanted me there. It means if you want a relationship with me, you build it from scratch. It means showing respect, not demanding I earn it. It means choosing what's right, not what's easy. I turned to him. And it means the next time someone, Natalie, her parents, anyone tries to exclude me from family events, you'll remember who acts like family. He nodded, understanding dawning. The house? He asked softly. Not my problem anymore. I sat down, feeling lighter than I had in years. You're an adult, Ethan. Figure it out like adults do. Get a job that covers your bills. Sell the house and buy something you can afford. Stop living beyond your means and expecting others to foot the bill. He stood, shoulders straighter. You're right. About all of it. He walked to the door, then turned. Mom, for what it's worth, seeing you stand up for yourself at Christmas, I was proud of you. Ashamed and angry, but proud too. Good, I said. Maybe there's hope for you yet. After he left, I poured a glass of bourbon and stepped onto my back porch. Winter was fading in Boise, the air hinting at spring. In 3 months, I'd be 58. Thomas had been gone 7 years. I'd wasted 6 of them being a doormat for people who didn't value sacrifice. I wasn't wasting anymore. My phone buzzed with a text from Lily. Dinner Sunday. The kids want to show you their science projects. I smiled and typed back, wouldn't miss it. Real family, it turned out, was found with people who wanted you there. Everything else was just expensive theater, and I was done buying tickets to shows where I wasn't welcome on stage. The bourbon tasted like freedom, and the future looked exactly as bright as I was willing to make it. If you like this story, please like this video. Subscribe to the channel and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left.